Hello. And to open my speech, I would like to ask you what you think of when you hear the word child or kid. Now, there's either two main things that you may think of when you hear a kid. You either think about a tiny little baby who's looking up with you and giggling and it's so cute and adorable, or you think about a snotting, tantrum throwing rat who you do not want to deal with. Now, each of these, whether good or bad, they're both totally normal things to think about when you think about a kid. And it often depends on the kind of interactions that you've had with kids throughout your life. This speech I'm going to be presenting is going to be telling you all why you all need to be a little more childish. I hope by the end of this speech that you will understand my point of view on this subject and that maybe you'll decide to take a few tips from the kids. Now, before we get into this speech, we need to make the difference pointed out between childish and immature, because they, although they could seem similar, are very different things. As I pointed out in the beginning of my speech, there are different views on children, and because of this, there are different views on the word childish. Now, children have changed since I was a kid. What kids are doing now are way different than what I used to do as a kid. And I'm sure what I was doing as a kid is way different than what my parents were doing when they were kids. And thus, when they were kids and the kids are doing now are also very different. It's because every generation we're advancing. And as the advancements move, so do the way that children interact and the way they work. So because of this, children have greatly changed since they were younger. However, I do believe that there are at least three things that stay true to children no matter what generation. They're still creative and take the world and put it through the lens of a child and create incredible things. They're still optimistic because you don't know anything bad to be pessimistic about. And they're blissfully forgetful. This, although it could seem good, it's actually very beneficial. But before I point out why we should be childish, I'd like to point out why people sometimes don't want to be childish or don't want to appear childish. Most of the time when people want to appear grown up is when they're transitioning from a kid to an adult, and they're in this gray area where they don't know where to fit in. Because of this, the child feels like they need to be respected, and they work really hard to try and appear like an adult to the actual adults. And the downside of this is everyone, especially people who are older, often treat kids differently than they do adults or their peers. And sometimes they don't do this by accident, but it happens unconsciously. It's just the need to be like, oh, how are you doing? And the need to maybe pat their head or fix their hair. You don't think of it as anything. However, you are doing that to your peers, most likely. What I have learned as a person who's very tight with kids is that if you treat them like anybody else or like any of your other friends, as long as it's respectful, they end up enjoying your company a lot more. Just treating them like your actual friend, it can do incredible things, and it helps you be able to relate with them. So even though you may appear childish yourself because you're relating to a child and what a child may have to relate to you, I still think it's a great way to figure out the way everything works. Now, why should you be childish? Well, kids today, in my opinion, are getting a little serious because the world's getting serious. The whole world is changing, and what the world thinks they need to do is they need to become more grown up and take control of what's going on. That way, because they are in charge and they're so serious, they can help keep things the way they should be. However, this means that children are being forced to grow up before they should. Because of this, the education is moving up in a greater scale. When it used to have nap time or Play-Doh time, now they're having math. And because of this, I believe they're missing out on life itself and the ability to think. Now, sure, they can think, but they aren't allowed time just to be creative and to just see what their mind has to offer. On top of this, social media is bringing the world down. Now, I'm not trying to hate on social media. I love social media. I have like several social media accounts. And we've all heard that. We've all heard that social media will make you depressed, or social media will make you upset about yourself and hate yourself. However, I have learned is that a fun fact that I want to share with you is that spoken words can actually affect you. Like actually saying the words, I'm ugly or I'm fat, physically has a reaction in your brain. And it brings your brain down and thus bringing your emotions down and actually affects you, even if you were joking. On top of this, tech and social media are captivating all the evils in the world. Now, you may not think about this very much or disagree entirely. However, that terrible text that somebody sent you, it's still going to be there tomorrow unless you delete it. And if you still hold on to it, it's going to be there next month and it's going to be there in 5 years from now. And you will never forget about that terrible text that person sent you. On top of that, what happens if this person makes a mistake? And that mistake is recognized by a famous person online. And a famous person online hates it and puts it on social media. Thus, overnight, this person and their one mistake becomes the most hated man on the planet because of terrible evils that he has done. Because of this, the world appears much more evil than it truly is. And because of this, we aren't going to forget. And we just continue to hate on all the people who make mistakes, which is human. And the biggest point is, remembering about all these mistakes only makes them worse. If you let it fester and boil inside of you, there's no point. I'm sure this speech isn't exactly what you thought it was going to be. However, these are the things that I think make me childish. I try not to let the tech affect me. Even in college, where things are a lot more difficult than when I was homeschooled, I try really hard to stay true to who I am and not let everyone else affect how I view the world. I also try to let optimism rule over pessimism. This helps me in life greatly, and although sometimes it's hard to think optimistic, sometimes I just have to force myself to think that way. And if I force myself to think it enough, even if I don't believe it, I end up believing it. Which is kind of confusing, but it works. And finally, before going to bed, instead of just watching technology or Netflix or checking my social media until I pass out on my bed, I try to just turn everything off and just allow my brain to just run wild. See where it wants to go, see what it thinks up. I feel like it's a great way to just give your brain a break and let it run wild. I believe that children are the perfect example of what the brain truly is before the world gets a hold of it. It's the most unaffected view on the way our brains should work and should function. So I think maybe that we should all try to follow in their footsteps and see what kind of things result from it. Thank you.